Hello, everybody. I'm Andy. Tonight, I'm doing something a little weird. With me tonight is a friend by the name of Mr. Wild_Berk. Berk, please introduce yourself.
Hello there, I'm Wild_Bork, and I'm pleased to be here.
But yeah, tonight we're doing something very kind of experimental. A less scripted show. It's just me and my friend Berk, and probably some more guests as time goes on. And we're just going to talk about games. So my channel for the past few years has been mostly aimed at obscure, older retro titles, games that aren't necessarily like the most popular, highest selling games. This show is kind of an excuse for us to talk about that. So tonight we're going to talk about a very popular game, one that I know both me and you have a lot to say about. And it's also an older game that I think we have a lot of history with. Tonight we're talking about Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. I think, Berk, you'd agree with me in just accepting the fact that like you can now just combine those games together as one sort of entity.
It's literally a continuation, let's be real. They came out within a year of each other, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, remember the boycott?
Yeah. And then literally Valve was like, we're never making a third title ever again.
I bet everyone is regretting that for the boycott. Although, I think Left 4 Dead 3 isn't something that we quite want.
I don't even think it's necessary.
But yeah, Left 4 Dead, it's an iconic series. If you even want to call it a series, it's just like two games that have a huge, ton of community support, regarded as two of the best zombie games ever made. I think I will go on record in saying that Left 4 Dead 2 is the best zombie game.
It's up there for me.
Yeah.
I have some other games I really enjoy. It's like Dead Rising and whatnot, the original. And a couple others, but they're all for different flavors.
Left 4 Dead is a very specific type of zombie game, and I think
exactly
what it does specifically, it does better than any other game in its genre.
Point A to point B.
Run from point A to point B, get as many supplies as you can, as much ammo, but pretty much by the end of it, you are just trying to get to the safe room until the very last one, which you're trying to escape. You think of that formula on paper, and it doesn't sound like it would be that amazing, especially nowadays. Nowadays, you have things like progression systems, you have open world, you have RPG mechanics in first-person shooters, but this almost 12-year-old, 13-year-old formula still manages to work. It's a very simple type of game, and it's interesting how timeless Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 still are to this day, even when plenty of other games have tried to usurp them, shall we say.
I got it, I think the day of. No, I didn't get it. I had a friend who got it the day of. And, they were pretty excited because I had a friend. I was a Nintendo kid through and through until I was like the tail end of my high school experience. And then I kind of opened up to everything else. But I had a friend who was a diehard TF2 of the whole 9 yards kind of thing. And so we played together. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty fun. It's pretty good. And it was just like, oh, it's a fun, fast-paced shooter that you have to work collaboratively with your 3 other teammates to ensure you get to the end of a different mission. The weapons were fun. It was really cool to have a pipe bomb or a Molotov the first time you did it, or when you do the first campaign, you blow up the gas station. That was a pretty fun set piece. And who can forget the opening cutscene to Left 4 Dead, the original?
Dude, I was about to say those two cutscenes. I prefer Left 4 Dead 2. Because that's the one that I started with, and then I went back and played Left 4 Dead 1. Although, oddly enough, I played more Left 4 Dead 1 Versus.
Yeah, well, because Left 4 Dead 1 Versus, I believe, is more balanced.
Actually, it is not more balanced. We'll talk about that. But yeah, when I first started, I could have sworn I started with Left 4 Dead 2. I might have just had both. I probably bought Left 4 Dead 2 at some game store when it came out, and then someone was probably like selling used copies of Left 4 Dead 1. That's probably how I got that one. But yeah, it was definitely the first Valve game that I played, and we'll talk more about Valve in a little bit. But there's so much about it was like really, especially as a kid who loved playing co-op games. To me, Halo was just playing campaign on co-op. Yeah, something about it. I loved all the weird gameplay stuff. I loved all the special infected, how they were all balanced. Playing with a friend was awesome. I loved survival mode. where we would
Oh,
like
God.
we would try our hardest on that lighthouse level to last as long as we could.
That
And
was the start of many arguments in my friend group.
then I got really into Versus. Versus was amazing, except for how unbalanced it was. In Left 4 Dead 2, they added the charger and the jockey and the spitter to explicitly get survivors from camping in corners. But I didn't care. It was still so much fun. I think I played a little more of Left 4 Dead 1 than I did 2. But looking back, I think I prefer 2 now. I love both games. But as a kid, I definitely played more 1. And I'm not sure why. I think 1 was just a little cooler to play. I loved the environment.
1 is more satisfying, in my opinion, to win.
I loved the I loved the levels in 1. I love that creepy, it's looking back as an adult, it's weird how different atmosphere-wise both games are, where 1 it's pretty much all set at night or at dusk or when it's still dark out. It has a very dark, creepy atmosphere. Meanwhile, you go to 2 and most of the levels are bright and sunny, and it's very not comedic, but definitely lighthearted, lighter in tone.
I will say 2 words: Kittyland.
Kittyland. God, we could do a whole retrospective on the character of Ellis. Kind of similar to you. I had a Valve friend. It seems like every friend group has that. Every friend group, you got the Halo kid, which is me, kid who has the Xbox. Then you have the Nintendo kid,
Myself.
who begs everybody to play Smash Bros with him.
Getting a little too close to home, buddy.
And then you have the Valve kid who talks about how amazing Half-Life 1 is and Half-Life 2, and then he also has Gary's Mod for some reason. And yeah, I did have a Valve friend, and his humor pretty much throughout middle school was just Ellis quotes, just to give you a perspective of the type of humor that existed in my friend group.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously quoting the infamous Psychic Pebbles animation, which I'm sure you're well aware of, Berk.
I'm trying to hold back my laughter here.
My friends call me Coach. Coach Kittyland.
It's one of those games that you think you can only really play once. You look at it, it's like there's no story. At first you think there's no replayability. You have these set campaigns, these set missions. But the more you play it, the more you realize there is a ton of content for these 2 little games, especially on PC, which we'll get into. But there's just so much fun with it, and even me and you playing it very recently just kind of made me remember what I loved about this game. Everything about the gameplay, the progression without needing an actual progression system.
Valve gaming in general, like the early 2010s in general, was a really good time for Valve gaming because TF2 became free. Left 4 Dead 2 was dirt cheap multiple times because of the sales. So if you ever had friends online, it was one of the most accessible games for your friends to play as in a cooperative experience that wasn't TF2.
It became the Uno of PC games.
Yeah.
Everyone had it installed.
Everyone has Uno, dipshit. It came free with your fucking Xbox.
I didn't get it. I have the oldest Xbox known to man.
You have Uno, you fucking dick!
I don't have it, you fucking...
Because I call it the big 3 games I recall hearing about or people talking about that wasn't Minecraft and an online community was League of Legends, TF2, and Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah, Left 4 Dead 2 really hasn't left popularity, has it?
And I can tell you, there were a bunch of friends who I knew from all walks of life, all different incomes, toaster computers, to people who built their own computer from scratch, from going to, game stores that were throwing stuff out, like real Frankenstein monster computers. We all could run Left 4 Dead 2. So for me, I have a lot of hours in this game. I have so many fond memories of different campaigns, both custom and normal, with people I'll never forget. This game is such an integral part of my downtime, at least growing up.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. You especially touched on something, which is running it on a potato PC. And yeah, because as someone who had a crappy PC, who very early got into PC gaming, there were only a handful of games I could run, and most of them were Valve games. So I grew up playing a lot of Left 4 Dead as I got further into PC gaming.
And that's kind of what I was saying, is like, it didn't matter where you were from. Did you have a computer that could turn on? It probably can run it.
Do you still have Windows XP? You can run it.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish we had a horse.
I'm reloading.
Reloading. I love horses.
You ever eat horse? It's tasty.
Man, you are sick. You know that?
Weapons here! Reeks like piss.
I wouldn't say that. I think it smells kind of nice.
One thing that can draw people back to Left 4 Dead is how distinct and memorable every survivor is. Like, the Gmod community went nuts with Pills here from Lewis, who was supposed to be kind of the, like, run-of-the-mill, everyday kind of office worker. He wasn't supposed to be noticeable or anything. You know, he's supposed to be this kind of mundane, normal person, you know, in quote-unquote society, to counteract from Francis, who was this gruff, I hate everything, and I'm a tough biker. And then, you know, Bill being the, like, kind of older, kind-hearted gentleman, but still badass survivor, and Zoe being, you know, everything you think of a tough gal would be. And then Left 4 Dead 2, every character was on 11 on something. Coach,
Left 4 Dead 2,
one-man
yeah.
cheeseburger apocalypse, Nick being, well, Nick, and Alice just telling you the most incoherent, babbling nonsense you've ever heard, but you want to keep hearing more of the story. But the best part is that the other characters tell him to shut up, because eventually you've heard these stories so many times you want him to shut up. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I love going on YouTube, and because for whatever reason, Valve decided to record so much dialogue with these characters interacting, and I love seeing all the YouTube compilations of people putting together these like dynamic conversations that only happen like, you know, one conversation out of 20 that could happen on this part of this specific level in this specific campaign. And it's really fun hearing all these like just these dynamic interactions and knowing that it's not part of a cutscene. It's not part of some scripted event where all the characters stand still and you have to hear this audio recording. It's something that you can hear in the background as you're walking, you know, to Kittyland.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that stuff.
Reloading. Where's Cedar? Good question. Where the hell is Cedar? 'Cause I sure like to shoot some of their asses.
I remember my favorite treat in the Left 4 Dead original was hearing the different dialogue options when you went in the elevator in the hospital on No Mercy, and realizing there were different conversations that could be had. That's when my brain clicked and like, hey, I'm probably going to really like this game.
That's kind of the recurring thing with Left 4 Dead, is just all the little details and flourishes that Valve decided to put into the game. Valve knows how to add in all these tiny little details that seem really insignificant on their own, but when they're all gone, when they're all missing, you really realize how important they were. And I'd say the characters are a big part of Left 4 Dead's charm. It is, even Left 4 Dead 1 was a little, as like dark and moody as Left 4 Dead 1 was, both games are still pretty like tongue-in-cheek. They feel more like action games as opposed to horror games. Like they have little elements of horror, but overall they're just these fun action zombie movies that you have to play through.
I was going to say it's an oppressive world and a very vibrant character setting is how I would describe it.
And I think that kind of adds like, it's not realistic, but it does add some sort of like authenticity to it, where these characters interacting with each other are so fun and so interesting to listen to that they kind of feel like real characters. Like you have this zombie apocalypse going on, and then you have, you know, Nick and Coach mocking each other and bickering with each other. It's such a tiny grounded piece of this whole world that really makes Left 4 Dead's world that memorable. So like this is a dark and oppressive world, and in a way it kind of makes sense why the characters are all like jovial with each other. You could argue that it's a bit of a coping mechanism, you know, the fact that they're joking and having fun. There's another great line where it's one of the famous interactions when you get to Kittyland, where Ellis is like, Ellis is super excited, obviously, and Nick is kind of making fun of him. He's like, I think he calls him like he's a 12-year-old with a comprehensive understanding of every curse word in the English language.
Holy shit, guys! Kittyland!
Sometimes it feels like we babysitting, doesn't it?
He is making the best of a bad situation.
He's like a 5-year-old with guns and a comprehensive grasp of every swear word in the English language.
And then Rochelle kind of just gives in, and she's like,
She gives a moment to just fully appreciate
yeah,
the little things.
I wish I could be that happy. Ah, to hell with it. Woo! Kittyland!
Wait for official instruction. Wait my ass.
Kill all sons of bitches. That's my official instructions.
Also, can I just say that Left 4 Dead 2 cutscene, the opening, that's so amazing, isn't it? It's so fun
Both of them
and
are.
bombastic. I prefer 2. I prefer 2's opening.
2
It's so much fun. The characters are great. I love seeing them interact. I love the interaction with Nick and Coach. As cheesy as the line is, maybe the helicopter is made out of chocolate. I love the way those two characters are bickering and playing off of each other.
I think it's so unfair to compare Left 4 Dead 1 to 2, because 2 is, by all means, better. And I mean it. I love how much better it is. Like, the dynamics, everything you said, 100% true. But we gotta remember, at least this is how I was looking at it, Left 4 Dead, the original, was a risk.
Yes.
And then once it paid off, I think a lot of people at Valve understood they could turn all the shtick, all the schlock, to 11. They just went for it. There was nothing off the table anymore for like comedy and like interactions between characters and how bombastic it needed to be. Because the first one was this like, we're in a really scary survival world where we got to introduce the smoker. Oh, that's really scary. Oh, the hunter, that's pretty scary. The witch, holy shit. Tank.
The tank,
And,
yep.
it's this tense survival. And then 2 is like, all right, you know what it is, bitch. And then they just go for it.
Looks like there's been a change of plans.
They have a lot to build off of. And I'll say this for the record, I kind of these days I associate Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 as just kind of the same package. I think we've long since passed the point where people need to distinguish between both games. You can play both games from Left 4 Dead 2. You can play the same Left 4 Dead 1 campaigns.
Left 4 Dead 2 is literally Left 4 Dead, but they added an expansion pack.
Pretty much. It is funny in retrospect how people boycotted it. If only Valve had continued releasing yearly games. But every company that's tried to release annual games it's never worked out for them.
Look for Need for Speed. That is one of my favorite series, and I've watched it go through some rough times on that year, the release.
Call of Duty. Remember when Assassin's Creed tried to do that? Gosh, that was funny. They tried to do 2 releases every year. I remember those days.
I am proud to say I didn't. I had it's okay. My first Assassin's Creed, and I watched my friends play, and I'm like, how are you still having fun with this? Because I wanted to say, this is me being a nerd. Is anything I loved, I definitely saw if there was alternative media content. And Left 4 Dead had some fun comics. And it kind of made you realize just how precious the moments of more of the humor were. Because the comics got fucking serious.
This is something Valve does, and I don't know if it's intentional. I mean, it has to be intentional, but I don't know if it's an artistic choice or if it is just a way for them to kind of leave backstory up to the imagination. Valve is very hesitant to add in exposition or to add in, the backstory of all these side characters. They're very hesitant to do that. So a lot of the times, if you want to learn the lore, you have to kind of just pay attention to all these clues that are scattered throughout, game levels. And even then, I'd say most of the backstory from Left 4 Dead comes from one particular comic book, which was made for The Sacrifice.
Yep.
In it, they describe how, I love hearing little details, like the military describes how they'll set up CETA camps, and just all of them are disappearing. There'll just be a day where they don't get a radio back from, some camp all the way over, on the East Coast. And then that's them realizing that they completely lost the camp and everyone in it. And then I think there's even a map. I think this is in-game. There's a map that showcases all of these CETA camps. Pretty much everything east of the Mississippi is just completely like gone. But that's never brought up in-game. It's just part of the world building that you have to kind of pay attention to.
Valve has always, and I mean this always, from Half-Life the original to even Half-Life Alyx in VR, has done so beautifully in showing, not telling, good environmental storytelling, where you don't have to say anything to show a deep understanding of what's going on. And I think that's a lot of the reason why Valve games, especially like Left 4 Dead or Half-Life, have such rabbit holes of lore. And then to touch base on what you said earlier, where they're hesitant to give backstory, is because when you give backstory, in my opinion as a writer, it confines a character to what they can be and not where they can go. If there's no past except a vague, like, oh, they're a gambler character, or, you know, like for Nick, like clearly a shitty con man.
I think it's implied that he works for the mob.
Yeah, like he's a shitty con man that is, you know, kind of like an enforcer, muscle, or somewhere kind of on the lower rung of the mafia. So he's got that like sarcastic humor and all that. And he's, you know, clearly an unhappy person, but because they don't go super deep into the trauma or the way it is, it has room to allow comedy and the character to breathe organically instead of having this regimented, well, you know, they've been an enforcer for 10 years and they've been the most ruthless cutthroat, you know, like, no, it's just a guy, it's a human being, and it doesn't matter who they were back then. It's what's important is how they are being affected now.
As you've been saying this, you kind of made me realize an important part of their character, which is that, yeah, they're not one-dimensional. They don't have gimmicks of like, you know, it's like, I'm the gruff cop character, and I'm here to maintain order, and then you have him arguing with Nick, who's in any bad writer, Nick would be the bad guy who's scheming, you know, because he's a gangster, because he was a bad guy. He's the bad guy. You know, I can just imagine some like Netflix writer making a Left 4 Dead show and doing that for Nick. The fact that their backstory is never explained. I think the only one whose backstory is kind of hinted at, that we know the most of, is probably Bill. And even then we don't know much beyond like the fact that he's a vet and the fact that he has these personalities. In a way, it makes you like feel like you're part of the group. Because remember, it's a zombie apocalypse. All these characters had normal lives, and now they're thrust together and they have to work together. Do you understand fully what they did before the zombie apocalypse started? Like, not really. All that matters is that you guys need to work together. And it's kind of fun because you as a player are put into that scenario as well. You're part of the group thinking, okay, I've just met all these people. I don't quite know what their backstories are, but I can only glean that from the way they're acting and the way they're interacting with me and all the other players. So that to me is probably the most amazing thing that Valve has done for these characters. Valve has given amazing characterization to characters with no exposition whatsoever, and they've done it better than many other AAA games who give pages upon pages of backstory for their characters. That to me is why Valve is the Chad when it comes to story and game development. They could just quick throw it together, be like, you know, these characters have a backstory, but it's not important. What's important is the way they're acting now.
Portal 2 is all I'm going to say for how quickly can you establish a character and make it not only, you know, entertaining, but believable. Mm-hmm. Wheatley. Who the fuck was this asshole with 10 minutes ago?
His or her right. Oh, God. You look good. Looking good, actually.
Valve has always been so good at writing characters, or at least fleshing them out in an organic game sense. And I wanted to just mention how the reason I think Left 4 Dead stayed so well is because this is supposed to be a funny A to B obstacle course shooter with some zombies and occasionally some harder zombies to kill, and then a last stand area. It didn't need to have super pizzazz. Such a rich and well voice acted world that can draw you in despite being one of the most simple premises of Counter-Strike models. You know, they started the game with Counter-Strike models with a bunch of guys with knives taking on 4 heavily armored players, give or take. But that's how it all started.
I've seen those early like gameplay tests where it's unrecognizable as Left 4 Dead. I mean, like, you can kind of tell that it's really different. And even then, it was E3, I think 2007, and it looked like such a different game. And I know that was a big part of it too, was before they would work on anything, they wanted to get that gameplay like nailed and figured out.
Left 4 Dead got the same treatment as Splatoon, actually. Originally, Splatoon didn't even have squid figures. They were originally bunnies and tofu. But the thing was, it had the gameplay idea, the exact same gameplay of, like, you covered territory, it was going to be different as a shooter, and, like, the entire aesthetic of Splatoon got made in 6 months. But the gameplay loop got made for 2 years.
Yeah, that happens with a lot of games. Going back to Valve, Team Fortress 2, you probably know about this, everyone does. Team Fortress 2 went through so many different revisions. Originally they were going to go for like a more kind of militaristic aesthetic, like they all looked like actual soldiers, fully decked out in camo. And then at some point it turned, and we still don't know much about this version of Team Fortress 2, but there are models still left in the game. At some point it was going to be a human versus alien shooter. And you can see there are like models of like human survivors versus these alien soldiers. But this is also where Team Fortress 2 started to get its cartoony aesthetic. Some of the best games ever made started off as just, we have an idea for gameplay, we kind of have an idea for some of these mechanics, and then let's come up with the aesthetic later.
Wind Waker got the same treatment on that one too, because originally when Wind Waker for the GameCube debuted, it showed this super hyper realistic like look, super gritty, and a lot of people were super excited about it, including myself. And then we got Wind Waker.
Was that actually supposed to be Wind Waker? I know the full story, which when the GameCube was being debuted, Nintendo showed off a Legend of Zelda something, and I think it was Link versus Ganon. It was like a sword
and
fight.
it was hype as fuck.
And it looked very like realistic. Was that meant to be Wind Waker, or was that Nintendo just coming up with a quick demo to show off for that E3?
I think it's a bit of both. The fight actually looks remarkably like the choreography to the Ganondorf fight in Wind Waker. But I think, it could have just been, in my opinion, I do think it's part of the demo. But they did show that footage, and then they didn't talk about Wind Waker the entire time. So it kind of pulled the rug under us. Initially, I thought the graphics were disappointing, but you know what the cool thing about going back to Wind Waker is today? It still looks good.
I find it funny. And again, you never know if these stories are true. I always heard that when Wind Waker wasn't as well received as Nintendo thought, which is outrageous these days because it's regarded as one of the best in the series. But when it wasn't as well regarded because of its art style, Nintendo specifically rushed out Twilight Princess so that it could release on the GameCube as well as the Wii, so that GameCube owners could at least feel like they had their gritty Legend of Zelda game.
And that's really fucked up.
And it's ironic looking back, because at the time you had this cartoony looking game, and then you had a very awesome looking, realistic, gritty Legend of Zelda. And in absolute retrospect, it is completely reversed, where Wind Waker still looks amazing.
It's pretty. It doesn't look like it aged a day.
And then Twilight Princess on the Nintendo Wii looks...
Oh, don't get me started.
It looks like a 2005 game that is super gritty and brown.
I played it on GameCube.
That was a weird habit of GameCube games. Near the end, Nintendo really started pushing the brown and gray color filter. I played a lot of Prime 2, and that game reminded me a lot of Twilight Princess with how brown and gray the environments were. Getting off of that tangent.
Yeah.
The aesthetics for Left 4 Dead came after. They focused on the gameplay which is totally the right way you're supposed to do it. I don't think there is a right way. I think in the case of a game like Left 4 Dead though, where the gameplay is top priority, I think that they made the right choice in coming up with, a game mode, a concept, fleshing it out, and then it's like, okay, now we got to add in characters and somewhat of a story and a backstory. And it's kind of funny looking back how Left 4 Dead basically started as just a mod that became a real game. Like one of the many Valve mods where someone made a game mode for Counter-Strike or Half-Life, and then it was fleshed out into a real game.
Possibly, that seems to be the standard MO now.
I miss those days when modders would be able to influence games.
They still do, actually. It's just, it's not where you think it is. for me, I've been getting into Guilty Gear, right? And Guilty Gear Strive mod community is insane, where they have actually reprogrammed in characters from other games already into the game. And it's getting to the point where the company has been like, hey, can you stop doing that? We need to release our version.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
One of the big selling points of Left 4 Dead these days is the mods. And Berk, me and you have become very acquainted with all these custom maps.
I am left aghast at the creativity. It's just everything about the mods, like from weapon skins to levels. There's whole campaigns, and I'm blown away. Yeah, by all of it.
Left 4 Dead, and not even just Left 4 Dead. This seems to have been Valve's philosophy. They really want a community to run with their tools, with their source engine. They wanted players to create their own content, to create their own fun, and that really paid off for them. And it's specifically because of all the custom campaigns and custom content that exists there. It's become this like infinite loop where there's so much content for Left 4 Dead. It's actually really too much to keep track of, to try and play it all. I don't know, something about it. It just brings back really good memories of how PC gaming used to be, which was, you know, allowing for a lot of mods and a lot of custom content, and we really don't get that anymore.
It's definitely a bygone of a different era.
Now joined by Chris Ashton of Turtle Rock Studios. This is pretty exciting for all us Left 4 Dead fans. Of course, you guys are known for all the amazing work.
The sad thing with discussing Left 4 Dead is that you really can't talk about it without acknowledging the elephant in the room. And we've teased this throughout the discussion. Back 4 Blood came out last year.
A peak moment when people were locked in their houses.
Everyone was told that it would be a return to form. That it would be, we're bringing back Left 4 Dead. It's better than ever. Every fucking commercial for this game had from the creators of Left 4 Dead in big bold text at the front of it. These are the original Left 4 Dead developers. Did you know? Turtle Rock developed Left 4 Dead. Did you know that? So at the time, everybody was like, oh, is this going to be a return to the good old days of Left 4 Dead 2 and Left 4 Dead 1? Spoiler, it wasn't. And I think it only further proved why Valve doesn't need to make Left 4 Dead 3. At least it does to me. Back 4 Blood is such a bad spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. It's so bad that it made people question how much influence Turtle Rock Studios had in the original Left 4 Dead. And people have done deep dives. They have looked into the development team. And to give you some insight, when Left 4 Dead was still like a Counter-Strike mod, I think it was that original team of like 5 or 7 people. I think it was 5 people. They would go on to found Turtle Rock. However, Left 4 Dead wasn't made by 7 people. It was made by Valve.
An entire team.
A lot of the programming, a lot of the art, a lot of the game design decisions came from Valve. It was a huge team that worked on Left 4 Dead. I mean, they still work at Valve. Like, they don't work at Turtle Rock. So Turtle Rock calling themselves like the original developers of Left 4 Dead is pretty misleading, especially when you consider how Turtle Rock has hundreds of employees themselves. So only like 5 of them worked on the original Left 4 Deads. And it also shows that they really didn't understand what made Left 4 Dead so good. They took a really simple concept and they tried to expand the absolute wrong parts of it. To give you an idea of what Back 4 Blood offers players, they have a progression system that feels like a looter shooter. You have to collect money. Like, you need to buy weapons. You have to level up. There are unironically like skill perks. Like, there are perks and skills that you have to unlock in-game. There are microtransactions, I'm pretty sure. And then they got rid of versus. There's no versus mode. It's limited to like the select maps. So it's not like a real competitive versus mode. And there's also no mods. They got rid of the mods, and then someone had a really awkward interview where they asked one of the developers whether or not there'd be mods. And the interviewer obviously thought that Back 4 Blood, the Back 4 Blood developer, was going to be ecstatic and be like, yeah, of course there's going to be modding. He was giving him a lowball question. And then out of nowhere, this awkward developer just says, no, we're not making mods. We're not allowing mods. And the interview just kind of had this, like, it's such a funny moment.
I did have one question. So back in the day, I used to be a part of the Left 4 Dead modding community. And
oh, cool.
Some of my best memories were learning coding and learning how to mess around with game files and stuff. Is Back 4 Blood going to facilitate the modding community at all with the online element, or is it going to purely be contained game files?
It's contained. We're at launch for sure. Yeah, we're not going to have anything like that available then.
That to me kind of showcases just they didn't know what Left 4 Dead was. They didn't know what made it amazing. And even small stuff like the fact that there is way too much story in Back 4 Blood. There are moments in the campaign where you are listening to these narrators droning on, like in the background, like with all of this backstory being given to you. There's so much like story and plot that they try to throw on you. And then even then, I think they have like 10 different characters. Like, so obviously like none of them are going to be as funny or fleshed out as the original Left 4 Dead cast. Not a single one. I can't even name a single Back 4 Blood character. That's how annoying and unmemorable they are. And thinking about Back 4 Blood, it's so sad what happened. There was a period where when that game was slowly getting closer to launch, I think they were sponsoring a ton of Let's Players. They were sponsoring a lot of streamers and Let's Players, specifically Left 4 Dead Let's Players, like people.
The old guard, the trusted members of that community.
They paid those people to be like, check out our Back 4 Blood game. Not a single one of those people that was sponsored by them still play Back 4 Blood. It has less players than Left 4 Dead from fucking 13 years ago. It's funny. It's so funny how every single decision Turtle Rock made, they just completely blundered it. One of the most egregious things with Back 4 Blood, and this is part of an interview with a developer, and he was talking about how annoyed he was that Turtle Rock didn't get the credit or ownership of Left 4 Dead. He was like, we made Left 4 Dead and people just don't give us, the credit for it.
We've had to sit by for the past 10 years and watch other people sort of riff on something that we created.
Valve retains Left 4 Dead, the IP.
Were you sad you had to leave the IP for Left 4 Dead behind though?
Well, yeah.
Of course, me watching this, being naive, I'm like, that's not true. Like, everybody knows. Turtle Rock helped with the original Left 4 Dead games. They get plenty of credit. Like, they use it. They advertise it every time they release a bad game. They put it on the commercials. It's from the creators of Left 4 Dead. They did the exact same thing with Evolve. That gem of a game. They advertise it everywhere. And then rewatching that interview, I got a really distressing realization that they're not talking about ownership metaphorically. Like, they're not talking about it in the sense that they want to be recognized as being the creators of Left 4 Dead. They're talking about it literally. When they talk about how annoyed that they are that they don't have ownership of Left 4 Dead, they're being literal. And then a thought popped in my head where I realized these fuckers wanted the Left 4 Dead IP, and they would have absolutely called Back 4 Blood Left 4 Dead 3 had they had the rights.
Were you sad you had to leave the IP for Left 4 Dead behind though?
Well, yeah.
And then that thought made me feel so disgusted. You don't know much about Back 4 Blood, Berk, but...
So I remember when it got initially announced, and went, oh, that's cool. And then I never thought about it again.
Yeah, no, neither did anybody else. The game came and went, just like Evolve. Turtle Rock is stuck in the shadow of Left 4 Dead. Not because of events that are out of their control. It's not that they are expected by consumers to make the next Left 4 Dead. It's that they're trying their hardest to make the next Left 4 Dead. When Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, as far as I'm concerned, were lightning in a bottle. There are objective elements that you can learn from Left 4 Dead to make a game better, but I think this obsession with Turtle Rock in constantly trying to make these 4-player multiplayer games to compete with Left 4 Dead, and them constantly failing at it, I think it's enough. Like, we've had 2 failures, 2 games that are already dead. Like, Back 4 Blood came out last year. Nobody's talking about it now. It's already forgotten. And Evolve had an equally bad lifespan, where it was forgotten immediately after it launched. And I keep wondering, like, how's this sustainable? Like, are they going to try it a 3rd time? Turtle Rock, please give it up. Make something else. Stop trying to chase Left 4 Dead. You helped make the originals.
They're chasing a high they'll never get.
I don't think they'll ever be able to match what Left 4 Dead was. Specifically, they're not going to match it when they try to make a shitty game that's full of microtransactions and doesn't allow modding. You're absolutely not going to reach it there. And all of this drama, all this stuff going on with Back 4 Blood has kind of made me realize why Valve is as smart as they are. And it's made me realize that maybe we don't need a Left 4 Dead 3. And even then, you can think about it. If Valve were to make Left 4 Dead 3, what would they do? Like, what more could they possibly do? They could add more campaigns, maybe. Could they add in 4 more survivors? Maybe. But like actual game design elements, like what more can they really do? At a certain point, you're just changing stuff for the sake of changing stuff. And as we've seen in Back 4 Blood, when you try to like just make random changes without much consideration for how they all like interact, you completely ruin, you can ruin entire parts of the game. One of my favorite examples is in Back 4 Blood, they added in aim down sights, which, you know, it's a modern feature. Everybody at the time was praising it. They were like, we don't need aiming from the hip. That's such an old dated mechanic for first person shooters. You need aim down sights. Everyone on YouTube with their hot takes saying that. But what it did was it unintentionally ruined the pace of a normal Left 4 Dead game. Because Left 4 Dead is all about running and shooting. When you run around in Left 4 Dead, your aim is slightly affected, but not by much, because you aim entirely from the hip. And then there is also no sprinting. So when you can run at full speed in Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, and be able to aim pretty accurately. And that allows for moments where you're backing up from a tank, or trying to run through a bunch of infected. But in Back 4 Blood, they added aim down sights, which then means that they have to give a reason for why you have to aim down sights. So then obviously you have some guy who comes up with the idea, oh, well, how about just aiming from the hip is super inaccurate. So all of a sudden the game completely slows down, and it doesn't feel like Left 4 Dead anymore. It feels like a completely different type of game. That was a bit of a tangent, but that to me is the ultimate example of why I don't think Valve can make Left 4 Dead 3. Or at the very least, I think Valve knows that they don't need to make Left 4 Dead 3. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 are perfect as they are, and I think Valve knows that if they were to try to make Left 4 Dead 3, they would just be making changes for the sake of making changes.
That's a pretty accurate statement. I do fully agree with that, because like even Left 4 Dead 2, the changes they made were literally special changes, like you said earlier, that forced the game to move faster. So it wouldn't let the game, like, you couldn't camp in a corner and win again. All it did was addressing issues that weren't fixed in the first game on a metagame level.
Which is why Left 4 Dead 2's versus mode is so much more balanced than Left 4 Dead 1.
A little more brutal, in my opinion.
Also, do you remember, to vote kick someone in Left 4 Dead 1, you only needed 4 votes as opposed to 8?
Yeah, so you could just,
So you could just...
I remember that because that was funny.
So you could just ban a guy.
Early Valve had this is my tangent, early toxicity that they're like, yeah, it's funny. Because remember the achievement, like, taunt on the person you're dominating or force someone to leave, and they called it a barbecue?
I was going to say the barbecue achievement.
They understood their audience, too. You know, that's the other thing is.
I think a better way to say it is they understood that they had multiple audiences. They knew that they had try-hard competitive players, and Valve was like, here, we have a space for you. They also knew they had the casuals who just wanted to play some games, fun, you know, cooperatively with their friends. Hey, we got a game for you. We got a space just for you. Valve knew how to juggle all of these communities, and not a lot of studios can do that. Even now, people have kind of lost a lot of love for Valve. It is funny in retrospect, after Alex's release, how like years before Alex, you had all these YouTubers being like, Valve has changed. Now they only care about Steam money and they don't want to make games anymore. And then they come out with like the best VR game ever made. I've never played Alex. I don't have a VR.
I've played it. It's gorgeous.
To me, I see that and I go, they're still interested in making games. And that's the only verification I needed.
I will say it this way. I think Valve understands they know when to make a game worth making. If that makes any sense. They're not going to make a game for the sake of making a game anymore. They understand when they slap their title, when they slap that fucking orange, lambda orange safety logo on, that has to be a game worth talking about. Cause like, yeah, Portal, legendary series. Left 4 Dead, we're talking about it for now over an hour in this interview. And we've talked about it many times privately off of these things. Half-Life is Half-Life. There's no fucking way getting around it. The amount of people that spend thousands of hours in Gmod is a testament to how good that game series is. So I think when you talk about Valve and why they don't make games anymore, it's because when they make something, it needs to be something groundbreaking or to show this is how it's done. You know that Simpson meme of that when the guy slaps his kid on the back of the head, like, now this is how you make a video game. That's Valve.
And they make so much money these days that they don't have to make games, which at the time a lot of people thought would result in Valve just never making games. Hopefully, and this might age like milk in the years to come, Valve doesn't have to make games so that the games that they make are ones that they actually want to make. Like Alex, they didn't have to make an experimental, super advanced VR game. They knew making a VR exclusive game was not going to bring in as much money as making just Half-Life 3. But they don't have to make it. They don't have to make Half-Life 3 for the sake of making Half-Life 3. They make so much money from Steam that they don't have to worry about it. They're in a weird position that not many game studios are in.
They're at a position where they don't have to worry about the risk of fallout or losing money. They can do it for the sake of making something better. And this might be just me jerking the persona of Valve off a little bit here, but I do feel that way.
Yeah, Valve, please don't make Left 4 Dead 3. Please don't. I would love Left 4 Dead 3, but we've seen what happens when people try to make it. Do you remember World War Z, Berk? Do you remember that amazing game?
So
I bet you don't even know that they made a World War Z game. If I know you.
I'm about to say they did, because like I have the book, which I've read. I've seen the movie, and I'm like, this is enough content from this specific idea.
It's actually kind of funny because World War Z is a very fun book. I love that book.
Yeah, and I have the Zombie Survival Guide too. I love that author. I think he's hilarious.
Like, it's not amazing, but it is fun. It's fun. It's fun to have.
It's hilarious. It's an enjoyable experience.
And yet the game they made is just a boring third-person shooter that has more to do in common with the movie. All the zombies are fast and running, and they like pile on each other like ants. They could have taken the book and be like, ooh, here's all these fun scenarios. Let's put that in the game. Let's do a game where astronauts on the ISS are trying to pinpoint survivor locations, or where a Chinese submarine is having to deal with zombies on their outer hull. Because guess what? Zombies can't drown. Like, that's fun. I love stuff like that, but the game didn't do it. So Valve, please don't make Left 4 Dead 3. If anything, I think Valve seeing all of these knockoff attempts at people making their own Left 4 Dead games, I think Valve is now like smugly sitting back, knowing that they made the right decision in leaving the series alone. And they probably are.
The boycott was their silver lining, probably, actually.
Yeah, when Gabe Newell flew out all the boycott members, and he showed them the game, and they're like, actually, the game's pretty good. That's Valve to me. That's what Valve does. Nowadays, if somebody did a petition to boycott EA or Activision, they would just get banned from Twitter.
Anyway, censorship's been kind of more prominent issue in the last 20 years. It's been more rearing its head in like video games, specifically the violence in video games, with the very famous Bill Clinton push the stick that pushes back, and more disturbingly of all, kill your friends guilt-free. Which I only know of because of the Guilty Gear mod for how to change the intros, and I learned that's a real speech. I thought that was a joke. No, it's a real speech. But Left 4 Dead, I know, went through a couple censorship issues, at least for Australia, where they had to like get rid of the blood.
Because some countries are different. We live in the West, where you can't show nudity, but you can show a guy's head getting blown apart. And a lot of other countries are reversed, where they're okay with nudity, but you put a gun in a game and you shoot a guy, that game is never being sold in stores. So yeah, Australia was one of them. That was the big one. I know, and I've told you this, in Germany, they had to censor all of the blood, which you look at Left 4 Dead, one of the biggest achievements they did was with the gore, was seeing like heads blow up. They revolutionized a 3D modeling tool that would subtract from 3D models so that you could like blow a hole through a guy's chest or blow off an arm. And that was the selling point. You play Left 4 Dead even now, that is some amazing gore.
It's one of the best. Even Dead Space can't keep up with it sometimes.
Valve, knowing this, that their game had amazing gore, they felt so bad for the German player base that they decided to add in all the Counter-Strike weapons just for fun, just to them, to be like, German players, you're missing out, but at the very least you have more weapons than everybody else. And that's so funny to me.
Australia got the similar treatment where they colored the blood differently.
In the UK, they had to censor the cover of Left 4 Dead 2 because the guy giving the 2, and that's basically the middle finger there, which would be kind of funny. That's what Valve should do for Left 4 Dead 3's cover art. The torn up zombie hand giving the middle finger. I know Valve also did. They also censored Team Fortress 2 in Germany, where they're all robots. When you kill them, instead of blood and guts, it's all like it's gears and springs. But man, that gore still does hold up.
What about the last content drop Valve did? So there was the one for Left 4 Dead where they added a new campaign for 2. And then it was just more of like, hey, we added a bunch of stuff that makes it easier for mods to do shit.
I don't remember I know they've done, because they added in Coldstream. That was one. And then they added in a full campaign to The Last Stand, which was actually pretty cool. Because Last Stand was the famous lighthouse level. And then they added a whole campaign before that. That was a neat touch. That was a fun callback.
That was me.
Oh, they broke through the brick!
Oh,
they broke through the brick!
They don't come through the brick, do they?
They did. They
just-
broke
no,
down the brick
zombies
wall.
Can't go through brick.
You know, famous content creators that I personally know, when they had to fill gaps in their career of making shit, was Left 4 Dead streams. Team 4-Star was infamous for having Left 4 Dead streams where they would be in character as their Team 4-Star, Dragon Ball Z abridged characters. There's so many people I know that, like, when there was a lull, they had massively successful videos making Left 4 Dead.
I know, like Kraken got famous for Left 4 Dead. A lot of Left 4 Dead has helped the careers of a lot of content creators, and because it's fun to watch. It is
It's chaos.
It's a spectacle. I used to be a Rooster Teeth fan, and one of the very first videos that they ever posted outside of Red vs. Blue, it was before Let's Play. I think it was before Achievement Hunter. I think it was that early on.
It was before Achievement Hunter. I know exactly what video you're talking about.
They did a survival run in the lighthouse level. It's so old because like one of them is clearly like playing split screen, and that's the one that's recording. So you have this awkward like split screen view, and then they clearly don't know how the game works, which is actually kind of funny. Like in retrospect, knowing
it plays into it.
They're like, zombies can break through walls, right? And they're arguing like, well, we should hide behind brick walls because zombies can't break through brick. And they have this whole argument. It's so funny in retrospect. God, Left 4 Dead, and it's still around. Left 4 Dead is never going to be as popular as it used to be in its heyday, but the fact that it's managed to hold on this long.
Any Valve game is held on. Any.
I mean, some more than others. I think like
TF2 is
hold on. Like every fucking year, people are like, TF2's finally dead. It's still holding on.
There's still at least 500 active players.
Probably more than 500. It's probably one of the most top played games on Steam. CS:GO, literally a 13-year-old game, or a 12. It turns 12 this year. They make a really good game, and then they don't overdo it. They don't feel the need to be like, we're gonna make Team Fortress 3. It's like, nope, just leave it alone. Guess what? Overwatch announced Overwatch 2. Nobody fucking cares. I guarantee you haven't thought about Overwatch 2 until I just brought it up just now.
I'm still not thinking about it.
Although I think in Blizzard's case, it wasn't so much as the fact that people were disinterested. Instead, I think people are more interested in the fact that Blizzard employees are stealing each other's breast milk. But that's a story for another time.
But say, hold up now. I thought they were just making another game so they could get rid of the porn and make it invalid, because the porn is far more popular than the actual game.
I think at this point it probably is.
No, it is. I'm a big fan of like looking at numbers.
I do too.
There's something about my monkey brain that really enjoys it.
To me, it explains a lot of why a company treats a game the way it does.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is like a lot of game decisions, like, we look at Valve that makes decisions based on like, hey, can we do this? Or at least like they literally were like, no, fuck you, we're not making a game because you boycotted it. Versus other games where they're like, we'll make a game that will be the most popular and successful to most demographics. I'm looking at you, Dead Space 3 and Fear 3.
Valve is in a unique position that not a lot of studios are in. And simply because they have the money to do whatever they want.
On top of having the name.
Yes. And they know that they have the name. They know that when they put the Valve logo in front of a game, it has to be quality. My biggest example of this is the fucking Star Wars title crawl. First 3 Star Wars episodes, even Return of the Jedi. You can complain about it. Hey, those are all pretty good movies. At the very least, they're pretty good.
About to say, there's never a bad original 3.
That's true. I will agree with that. Although, depending on...
There is a quality difference, but there's never one where I'm like, I did not have a good time.
Then you get to the prequels. All of a sudden, the title crawl, it's a little less special. Then you get specifically though.
You take drinks. You if you are a guy like me who likes playing drinking games during movies, you realize it's no longer a game. It's a necessity for enjoyment.
Then you get to Disney Star Wars, where they made a movie every fucking year for 5 years. Do you remember that, Berk? When once they made Force Awakens.
You know how you say I live under a rock? That was the one thing I went out to see. And I was repeatedly fucking crushed by immense disappointment and a clear, hey, this is just a mass production thing to get a bunch of people that consume content just to do it. I have never been more disappointed. Coming from Star Wars, and I'm like, alright, Star Wars hasn't led me too far astray. Like, the prequels are bad, but, you know, there's a charm to them. I can still say I had fun watching them.
And at the very least, they decided to not make more. After Revenge of the Sith, they were done.
And
like
Revenge of the
George
Sith
Lucas was done.
Revenge of the Sith is hype. You can't fucking tell me that.
I grew up with Clone Wars. I love that era.
Sorry, which Clone Wars?
3D.
Oh, 3D. Because I grew up with the Travansky, the Samurai Jack director.
Of course you did.
Well, they were coming out when the movies were coming out.
I love 3D Clone Wars. I'll stand by that.
They're beautiful. I've recently watched them. They're beautiful.
I cannot go back. I cannot go back and watch the prequels. Those movies are unwatchable. Same with sequel Star Wars. To get to my point though, the huge influx of all of these Star Wars movies all of a sudden created a disdain for the brand. And now, like, I'd say before Force Awakens, I was a Star Wars kid. I still, like, there is still part of that in me. But
I will say honestly, but I will make a preface.
As of now, I genuinely don't care. I genuinely do not care about Star Wars.
You weren't a fan of Visions?
I saw that. It was pretty good, but it wasn't Star Wars.
It was fucking loved it.
It was Star Wars. They gave the Star Wars brand to actual good studios who made their own things with it. And even then, it, like, I don't know, just Star Wars. There's too much Star Wars. Just fucking throw it away. I don't care. Please stop. Valve knows this. They know how much power their logo has when they put it in front of a game, which is why they aren't making games every fucking year. They're not doing a Ubisoft. They're not doing an EA. They're sitting back and they're letting people take in games. I have a bit of an anecdote. Mm-hmm. I think it's good to let a game just simmer, because the longer you let it simmer, the more time people have to appreciate it. My favorite example of this, as you know, is Halo. Once Halo Reach came out, Microsoft immediately wanted to make Halo 4. And obviously Bungie didn't want to make Halo 4. They fucked off. They didn't care about Microsoft. To them, they thought the series was over. Anyway, Microsoft went ahead, formed 343, the worst studio ever made, and they whipped together Halo 4 like 2 years after Halo Reach. Like it was, you had Halo Reach, then you had the remake of Halo 1 in 2011, a year later, and then you had Halo 4 a year later. Then, like 2 or 3 years after that, they had Halo 5, which they also rushed out because the original version of MCC came out a year before. So you had all this Halo content. Then you had all these like Halo spin-off games. They were trying to make a fucking Mega Bloks Halo game at some point.
Wait, Mega Bloks wanted to make a fucking game?
They wanted to make a Halo game. Yeah, it was like it was Mega Bloks Halo Edition. Just
the fact that I hear Mega Bloks in game, like it's like hearing Burger King Sneak King coming to life again. Like something that shouldn't exist.
they quickly forgot what made Halo special. And I think it only happens when you keep having to pump out games in a series in a short span of time, where you lose focus of what people liked with the originals, because they're still fresh. They're still fresh in your mind. Everyone knows that like everyone has recency bias. Like, that's a genuine thing. Something new comes out, all of a sudden it's the best thing ever. You got to give it time. Then all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, maybe in the grand scheme of things, maybe it wasn't as good as we thought. You don't have this when you're pumping out games every 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to 343 was a hilarious twist of irony, because the Halo fan base grew up as 343 were trying to put out their sequels. And all of a sudden, all these Halo fans started to realize what they loved about the original Halos, and they started to see what 343 was doing wrong. It was over the course of like Halo 4 and then specifically Halo 5, where everyone kind of just woke up. And 2015 will forever be the worst year for 343, because that year they released Halo 5, and it was one of the worst selling Halo games since Halo 1. That has gone on record to be one of the biggest player drop-offs. And everybody kind of realized, oh, they've missed it. 343 is missing the mark. 343 is not making a Halo game. They're trying to make like a Call of Duty, or they're trying to do something else. Because of how short-sighted they were, 343 completely gave up with Halo 6. And they had to spend the next 5 years and $500 million starting and restarting with Halo 6, which became Halo Infinite. So what I'm getting at is that you need to sometimes let a game simmer. You need to let a game just sit there and be appreciated. Let fans enjoy it. Let fans keep coming back to it. And only then will you slowly understand what made that game work. Because now here we are talking about Left 4 Dead, and we're talking about games like Back 4 Blood and World War Z and Evolve that all tried to capitalize off of it but couldn't quite figure it out. I think Valve knows this. I think Valve knows that they can just let a game sit there, and the longer it sits there, the more people will appreciate it. If Half-Life Episode 3 had come out 2 years after Episode 2, Half-Life would not be as well remembered as it was today. The fact that you still have people clamoring for more Half-Life content is a testament to why letting a game just take a break is such a good idea. Anyway, that is my hottest of hot takes, which is ironically about letting a game cool down, letting a game just sit there for a little bit. Give it a few years. I think give it 10 years. 10 years is long enough for people to grow up, for people to get out of their immature teenage weirdo phase. Because that's what happened to us Halo fans, is we went through a shitty teenager phase, and we wanted Halo to be brand new. We wanted it to be like Call of Duty. We wanted it to have kill streaks and loadouts. But then now we're adults, and we realized how cringy we were, and we realized that Halo didn't have to change. So that to me is my ultimate take from Left 4 Dead, is we don't need a Left 4 Dead 3. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 are perfectly fine, and the longer Valve lets us sit with them, the more we'll appreciate it.
So, it's kind of a completely different tangent, but
Ooh.
My father and I make gumbo, a lot of gumbo. And I'll tell you this, we've only made one recipe change over the course of the entire year I've been alive. And that is when we decided to add double the cayenne pepper to it. And now it's perfect. And that's the same for Left 4 Dead to Left 4 Dead 2. You made it a little spicier. It doesn't need anything else.
I actually really like that analogy.
I think it's the simplest.
I think that's a good way to end.
So I'm Wild Berk, and, I don't think I have a lot of selling points, but people do. So I'm going to go on the record and say I love horror. I love a lot of genres. And, as someone who's been around long enough to not only as someone who has lived long enough to see it, but who professionally writes and acts it, I've noticed a lot of trends. And if you like seeing someone who can kind of call out trends or enjoys the psychology of storytelling, I would love you to check me out. But the truth is, I'm just a guy. I was just happy to be here. You know what? This is what I will say. As an actor, as someone who wants to become a next big voiceover, if I could be as rememberable as the cast of any character from Left 4 Dead or 2, I think I consider that the ultimate success as an actor.
I would agree. Can I also say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Valve, how come every voice actor they pick is amazing? Because there are big name voice actors that everyone turns to in games. Yet Valve always manages to find, I wouldn't say obscure, but like smaller known voice actors. And it's always the perfect fit.
I can only imagine what the interview audition process is as an actor going into Valve.
Do you know what I love with my favorite Valve story is, do you know how they got the logo? The guy with the valve in his head?
I do not.
They literally picked a guy off the street. They took a picture of him, the back of his head, and then he went on his way. We have no idea who that guy in the Valve logo is, other than he's apparently some guy that they just picked off the street.
Beautiful.
They've actually done that with a lot of their character models. I know Half-Life 2, a lot of them are based off of people, like not actors, like people that they've picked. Like I think one of them is
just people.
Yeah, like people who shared the same building space as they did. So they got some guy to, pose, and that's how they got the face for Kleiner or for G-Man.
So I this will be my last story because I gotta head out. My grandmother is actually in a Capital One commercial.
Ooh. And
the reason she got the gig is for the funniest reason of all time, in my personal opinion. So she's like 76, 78 at the time when the commercial was being filmed. And she gets on the public transit and she goes to her audition, right? This audition for this commercial. And she walks in and she realizes she forgot to get like properly dressed. She got like partly dressed, right? Like, this. But she forgot to take the hair curlers out of her hair. Like when you go to the salon to get the hair curlers, she forgot to take those out. And so she went to the audition. Before she could even read the lines, the caster who was going to cast her for the commercial went, "She's perfect." So you can, as an actor, you can be hired for the weirdest reasons. And I can attest to that as someone professionally speaking as well. I have been hired for really fucking goofy takes where I thought the shitty take that I was like, I'm just going to have fun with this. And this is just me like trying to vent off like me stressing out a 40-minute recording session. And that's what got me hired. So, I think with actors from Valve, I'm so curious how they hire people there, because there is never a voice actor, I don't think, on the voice in a Valve game where I'm like, who is this person? How do I not know of them? Why are they so perfect at what they do?
Why are you so perfect?
Yeah, like as an aspiring voice actor, I am professional, but like, you know what I mean? Like, to become a legend.
Yep.
I don't care if I do 10 commercials that pay me well. I want to do one gig that pays me $10, but anyone on the internet may at some point reference me at some point. I would rather have that than get paid like my normal pay rate.
I think that's a beautiful thing to end on.
Yeah.